أبي لهب وتب ما أغنى عنه ماله وما كسب سيصلى نارا ذات لهب وامرأته حمالة الحطب في جيدها حبل من مسد.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir-Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta alaihim.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Inna adena kal kausar fasalli li rabbika wanhar. Inna shanika huwal abtar.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم سبح اسم ربك الأعلى الذي خلق فسوى والذي قدر فهدى والذي أخرج المرعى فجعله غثاء أحوى سنقرئك فلا تنسى إلا ما شاء الله إنه يعلم الجهر وما يخفى ونيسرك لليسرى فذكر إن نفعت الذكرى سيذكر من يخشى ويتجنبها الأشقى الذي يصلى النار الكبرى ثم لا يموت فيها ولا يحيا قد أفلح من تزكى وذكر اسم ربه فصلى بل تؤثرون الحياة الدنيا والآخرة خير وأبقى إن هذا لفي الصحف الأولى صحف إبراهيم وموسى صدق الله العلي العظيم اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahu la ilaha illa huwal hayyul qayyum. La ta'khudhuhu sinatun wa la nawm. Lahu ma fis samawati wa ma fil ardh. Man zal ladzi yashfa'u indahu illa bi'iznihi. Ya'lamu ma bayna aydihim wa ma khalfahum. Wa la yuhituna bi shay'in min ilmihi illa bima sha'a. Wasi'a kursiyyuhu as-samawati wal ardh. Wa la ya'uduhu hifdhuhuma wa huwal aliyyul azim. لا إكراه في الدين قد تبين الرشد من الغي فمن يكفر بالطاغوت ويؤمن بالله فقد استمسك بالعروة الوثقى لا انفصام لها والله سميع عليم. الله ولي الذين آمنوا يخرجهم من الظلمات إلى النور والذين كفروا أولياء الطاغوت يخرجونهم من النور إلى الظلمات أولئك أصحاب النار هم فيها خالدون.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والسماء والطارق وما أدراك ما الطارق النجم الثاقب إن كل نفس لما عليها حافظ فلينظر الإنسان مما خلق من ماء دافق يخرج من بين الصلب والترائب إنه على رجعه لقادر يوم تبلى السرائر فما له من قوة ولا ناصر والسماء ذات الرجع والأرض ذات الصدع إنه لقول فصل وما هو بالهزل إنهم يكيدون كيدا وأكيد كيدا فمهل القافرين أمهلهم رويدا صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجه.
Assalamu alaikum. We would like to welcome Sheikh Azhar Sheraze. Please recite loud salawat for him. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wajil farajahu. Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allah.
صل على محمد وآل. Brothers and sisters, inshallah, let us recite a Surah Al-Fatiha for all of your marhumeen, and especially the marhumeen of the organizers and sponsors of this majlis. Surah Al-Fatiha. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. One more, salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين فاطر السماوات والأرضين ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في القرآن المجيد: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا استجيبوا لله وللرسول إذا دعاكم لما يحييكم. صدق الله العلي العظيم. One more salawat, please. My respected brothers and sisters in Iman, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you. It is an honor for us to be in this gathering for the remembrance of the martyrdom of Sayyid al-Shuhada and all of those who were with Imam Hussein on the day of Ashura. Today my speech will be about love and love of family. Before we speak about love of family, I want to give some introductory remarks. What country are we in? That's right? The United States of America. Now listen very carefully to what I'm saying. It's going to be a little difficult to understand. You're going to have to really put on your thinking caps to inshallah understand this delicate point. When you read the Quran tells us that people follow a deen. One more question, what is a deen? What is a deen? Oh, that's true, but in the Arabic, yes, a deen is the leader of a college, that's true, but the Arabic word deen, not D-E-A-N, but D-E-E-N. Bismillah. Very close, very close. But someone said it before. Please tell me, what is deen? Religion. The Quran tells us that people have religions. But normally when we think of what is deen, we say that, for example, Christianity is a deen, or Judaism is a deen, or Islam is a deen. But the Quran tells us that even people who say we don't believe in any faith at all, we are atheist, or we don't belong to any so-called religion, the Quran says even they have a deen. Because a deen in the Quran is a way of life. Everyone chooses a way of life to follow. And some have said that in America, the deen of our country today, of the modern world today, is actually not Christianity. Although there are many Christians, there is a deen that we need to be very careful of that is more influential on our lives. And that is the deen of individualism. That our culture in broader society, I'm not talking about Jaffari Center, I'm not talking about in your home, but the religion and the deen that you are often taught is what's called individualism. That you should seek out everything for yourself. You're taught from a very young age that these are my toys. And you grow a little older and you learn that these are my video games. This is about me. And then you grow a little older and you realize that there are more important things, but nonetheless it's still about me, myself and I, my grades, my cars, my education. Our entire lives are oriented around loving, obeying my own desires. You know, when I grew up in the 1990s, there was a very well-known commercial that people would watch on TV. You know the soda Sprite, right? Sprite? The commercial that would come on TV for Sprite was always telling you to obey your thirst. Right? Obey your thirst. Right? And just imagine in Islam you hear someone say, obey your thirst, right? Obey your shahwat. Obey your desires. This is completely opposite of our religion. Our thirst, our shahawat, our desires, they obey us, not the other way around. Right? That's why when we have, not you of course, but very young children, they want for dinner every single night gummy bears, halal gummy bears of course, soda, right? Pizza. Every day they would want this because their shahawat is telling them, I want sugar, I want junk food. But a good parent and a strong, intelligent young man or young woman would say, no, I'm not going to obey this. I'm going to eat some vegetables. I'm going to eat some dal. I'm going to eat healthy. And every so often I will enjoy a dessert, and there's nothing wrong with that. But we don't obey our shahawat. Right? Our intellect is in control of our desires. Right? Our society teaches us, pursue your happiness. That's the most important goal of our society. In fact, this is so important, it is embedded in the very founding documents of the United States of America. You've heard of the Declaration of Independence? That there is certain sacred rights that human beings have, according to this document, that they have the right to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Happiness, chasing your happiness, your dreams, this is something fundamental to what it means to be an American. But we have a friendly disagreement, a respectful disagreement with this. Boys, listen carefully. If you look throughout the Quran, and you look throughout every narration of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you look at all of the narrations of Ahlul Bayt alayhim wassalatu wassalam. One more salawat, please. I will challenge you. I will challenge you. See if any verse of Quran or any statement of the Prophet or any narration from the sacred household of Rasulullah, if they've ever said this phrase, that you should make your goal chasing after your happiness, or seek out your dreams, you will never find that. What you will find constantly from the lips of Rasulullah and his beloved family, make Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala happy. Chase after the happiness of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salatu wassalam. You will constantly find Ahlul Bayt telling you, make your wife happy. Make your children happy. On Friday, give them a gift. Give them something nice. Right? Bring happiness to your fellow believer. If you do this, then you would have done something that makes paradise wajib on you. And if you demean your fellow believer, if you insult them, if you mock them, on the day of judgment, you will offer all of the heavens and all of the earth in ransom so that you can say, oh Allah, forgive me for what I did to my fellow believer. Allah will say, I have no interest in these things. You cannot exchange even all of the riches and the wealth of the dunya in exchange for your mistake that you had committed, demeaning a fellow believer. You know, there's a hadith that tell us that our imam of our time, he receives a ledger. And on that ledger is the a'mal of all of his Shia. If the imam sees that the Shia are making him proud, his pride and his sense of honor increases. He is proud of the Shia, he's happy with their behavior. But when that ledger has the amount of ghiba that his Shias are doing, the amount of sins that they are doing, the very fact that they refuse to respect their parents. And when the imam sees this, the ulama say that these sins, they strike the heart of our imam like arrows. This is what you find in the traditions of Islam, the ahadith and the verses of Quran. Not chasing after your own happiness, but making others happy. Serving others, serving your loved ones. And these relationships, starting with your relationship with God, this is what is sacred. Your relationship with Ahlul Bayt, this is what is sacred. And even your families, your loved ones, this is what is truly important to your religion. And in fact, those who chase after their happiness, they are chasing after a fool's errand. Because what does it even mean to be happy all the time? Right? Happiness comes and happiness goes. There are days in which we, inshallah, are happy, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increase your happiness, inshallah. But there are some days in which the appropriate emotion is to be sad. Your mother passes away. Your father passes away. Your family members are going through hardship. Why would you feel happy? This is an insult to those around you. When you see injustice against those who are oppressed, you should not be happy. You should be angered by this. Right? If you are happy all the time, then actually there's something wrong with us. Right? We might need to get checked out by a doctor. Doctor, I'm happy all the time, right? But surur is something that is a gift of God, it comes, but sometimes the right, appropriate feeling is something else than that. But what Quran does say is don't chase after happiness, for on the day of Ashura, the feeling that you should have is immense grief. But chase after itmi'nan, the satisfaction of your heart. And the only way you're going to get that satisfaction of your heart is when you honor and love and serve these relationships in your life. Ala bi dhikrillahi tatma'innul qulub. With the remembrance of God does the heart find rest. With the serving of your Ahlul Bayt, this is what will bring satisfaction and peace to your heart, sakina to your heart. Just the other night we remembered the tragedy of Lady Sakina. You know what Imam Hussein said about his beloved daughter Sakina? I don't want to be in any house where Sakina is not in this house. Right? This is what Ahlul Bayt loved. And so this is what we need to transform in our lives. This individualism, this chasing after our dreams, chasing after fame and fortune, this is not the goal of life. And now I must clarify something, my brothers and my sisters. The dunya and everything in it is not capable of giving you that itmi'nan. Even the happiness that we chase in the dunya, with money, with power, with career, all of these things, it will never give you what you desire. This is why Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, he says, قَدْ طَلَّقْتُكِ ثَلَاثًا لَا رَجْعَةَ لِي فِيكِ. I have divorced the world 3 times, and there's no returning to the world for me. You know, when you get divorced to one person 3 times, right? You divorce once, Islam allows you to come back together, and inshallah, may Allah give you happy, satisfied, loving marriages, inshallah. Everyone say Ameen. But you divorce again, you're allowed to come back again. But the 3rd time, after the 3rd time, Islam basically says it's haram on you to go back to that person. Because Allah sees that this relationship is destructive. Right? This is what Imam Ali is doing to the dunya. He's divorcing the dunya. But some have wrongly believed that this means that the commander of the faithful hates the dunya, that he despises the world. On the contrary, this is absolutely incorrect. In fact, one of the greatest criticisms that Imam Ali made during his Khilafah was against the so-called Zahideen, the Sufis, the ascetics, those people who they abandoned their jobs, abandoned their families, and they went to mountains to pray 24 hours a day. The Imam looked at these people and he said, who do you think you are? I want nothing to do with this life that you live. Do you think you are so special to God that you need to spend 24 hours a day on the prayer mat? You think you have some special relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, some special appointment, that you're like Nabi Musa on the mountain, that Allah needs you to spend 24 hours a day with Him? Right? You're being arrogant. Allah doesn't need this. If you truly loved God, you would do what Allah told you to do. Yes, pray 5 times a day. If you can't do some nawafil, read some Quran, spend some time learning your deen, do the ziyarah of Ahlul Bayt, but go take care of your family. Don't abandon them. Go work. Don't be lazy. Earn a living. And so the Imam is not saying, I hate the dunya. But what the Imam is saying, and listen carefully, is don't fall in love with the dunya. There's nothing wrong with the dunya. The dunya is a creation of God. You will find in the dunya ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You will find symbols of God that remind you of Allah's wisdom, His mercy, His knowledge. The dunya is important. But what the Quran says is that your heart should not belong to the dunya. Your heart should belong to Allah. Your heart should belong to Ahlul Bayt. And your heart should belong to your family. Love these people. Love your wife. Love your husbands. Love your parents. Right? And don't give yourself to the wrong thing. Give yourself to your relationships. Inshallah, we'll further understand this with the loudest of your salawat ala Muhammad. Love your relationships. This is where the satisfaction of your heart will be found. You know, at the very end of the life of Muawiyah, la'natullahi alayhi, do you know what he said? Muawiyah, the enemy of Ahlul Bayt, the arch enemy of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam Ali did not want to fight against other Muslims. You know what Imam Ali said when he faced against the army of Muawiyah? He says, what is this? Why are we bringing all these people to fight? Muawiyah, why don't you and I fight? One-on-one, we'll handle this ourselves. Why are we killing all the Muslims? This same Muawiyah, who was the killer of the family of the Prophet, you know what he said on his deathbed? I wish I had never chased after the Khilafah. I wish I had never chased after the dunya. My heart is not satisfied. I wish I was like those poor people on the streets. At least they have families. Right? At least they don't have these worries that I have. Of course, when you become so addicted to something, even when your mind realizes this is the wrong thing, there's nothing you can do now. You know those people who get addicted to alcohol, drugs? They know in their minds that this is the devil. This is wrong. But it's too late for them because they have an addiction. Right? I'm going to tell you a few stories about my time as a chaplain. I spent a few years as a chaplain in a hospital. 2 stories. Number 1, then I would spend time in the psychiatric ward. They call it the behavior health ward. And you know the number of people, they would sit in these what's called 12-step programs. These were people who were addicted to drugs and alcohol. And the number of people who would sit in there, these elders would sit there and they would see young people in the gathering who had destroyed their lives. And these elderly people said, what are you doing? Why are you making this decision? Stay away from this devilish substance. Only Satan is the one who drinks these substances and does these substances because it'll destroy you. Don't make the mistake that we old people have made, because once you get involved in this, you will never be able to let go. It becomes an addiction. The dunya in this way, when you consume it and make it your entire goal in this life, it is like salt water. The more you drink salt water, the thirstier you get. And in my time as a chaplain, people, patients who would come to the hospital, they would call for someone to speak to, they want to talk to someone, to speak to a chaplain. And understand that in the hospital, if you are a patient in the hospital, very often, this is not a fun time. Right? In fact, those who are in the hospital, sitting on that hospital bed, it is often some of the worst days of their life. Some of them are on their deathbed. The doctor has told them, you only have a few more days to live. Or some of them are going through very life-threatening surgery. Or some of them are diagnosed with diseases. Or some of them are just having a very difficult time. And so people will, in those moments, they'll be very frightened, scared, afraid, anxious. That just yesterday I was on top of the world, I was rich, I was famous, I was wealthy, I was healthy, and now I see my life falling apart. And so they would call people like me, and we would just sit and we would talk, we would chat. And in the years that I spent as a chaplain, I swear to God, I never heard anyone who wanted to share their regrets, their anxieties, their worries. I never heard anyone say, I wish I had made more money. I wish I was more famous. I wish I had more followers on TikTok or Instagram. Or in my day it was Facebook and Snapchat or whatever it is. I wish I had spent more time on my career. I never heard this. But you know what I did hear? Chaplain, I hope God forgives me. I regret so dearly that I was not kinder to my mother. I hope my parents forgive me. I wish I had a relationship with my children. And you might think, oh, you're a chaplain, of course that's what they want to talk to you. The number of people who came to me and said, Chaplain, can you show me how to pray? I've never done it before. But I see my life flashing before my eyes. I start to realize now what is truly important. We cannot wait until our deathbed to make the right decision, to understand what is truly important. Our relationship with God, our relationship with Ahlul Bayt, and our relationship with our families and our loved ones. Recite salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Now please don't leave this majlis saying that the Sheikh told us not to worry about the dunya, so I don't have to study anymore. Right? I don't need to worry about grades. I'll just get married and I'll love them, right? That's not at all what I said. Don't make your goal the dunya. But when your goal is Allah, the Ahlul Bayt, and your relationships, your family, in fact, you will study harder. Because now your studies, your goals, your careers, all of these things will have meaning now. You know, Sayyid Sistani once gave advice to the young people, and he said, one is an end or a goal, and the other is the means. Marriage and family is the goal, and career and dunya and money is the means. One should serve the other. And if you do the opposite, you have completely misunderstand what is wisdom. In fact, that is foolishness. And so may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you all A's, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you careers and jobs and fulfilling opportunities to make money. We need people to make lots of money, right? It serves no one to have the Muslim community live in undignified life of poverty, right? We need to give decent lives to our families, to our communities. Our masajid need to look beautiful, and that happens only when you earn, when you do a good job with your studies and your careers. But if that becomes your goal in life, you know what the Quran says? Alhaakumut takathur hatta zurtumul maqabir. You pile up all this money. You know, when we were young, we used to watch this cartoon called, what was it called? DuckTales. Anyone remember DuckTales? Right? That duck, he was rich beyond measure. He used to swim in his bank account, and he would swim in all his money. Right? The Quran says that type of behavior, it will make you like Muawiyah. This was Umar ibn Sa'd. You know what his problem was? He actually respected the Prophet and Ahlul Bayt once upon a time, until he saw the glittering jewels and money, and he made that his goal. And he says, I want to be the ruler of Khurasan. And he sacrificed what was important for what was meaningless. Right? What good is your career if it means that you sacrifice what is truly important? Right? Hazrat Hur, on the day of Ashura, he was a career man. There was no more decorated soldier in all of Kufa. But when he was faced with that decision, that do I sacrifice my money and my wealth and my position? Or do I seek out the wealth and the riches and the validation of the people of the dunya? And he made his decision because he understood what was truly important. Send salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So I hope you've not misunderstood me. The dunya has its place, money has its place. It must be in service of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If it stays on your bank account, it is rotting away. Right? They say you cannot take your money with you, right? When you pass away, when you go into the qabr, they say the money is not coming with you, but this is a mistake. This is not true. You can take your money with you. If you use that money in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your money will come with you. It will defend you against the demons of the qabr. It will protect you against all of the terrible things Yawm al-Qiyamah. Your money will do that. It will become a wasila for you to be protected on the Day of Judgment. And there's no one better to help us understand how to love our relationships, our families, than the Ahlul Bayt alayhim wassalatu wassalam. Recite salawat, please. You read Hadith al-Kisa in every gathering. Right? What is Hadith al-Kisa? Have you read the translation? What is this? If you read the story, it is literally the Prophet was feeling sick, and his family came, his loving family came and said, we want to be with you, Rasulullah. That is this story, that's it. There's no Hollywood movie effects, there's no sword battles, there's no, Avengers-like excitement. But why did Jibreel want to join this family underneath the Kisa? Because this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves. To see a family that all together they love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is the most beautiful and valuable thing to God. Right? Even if you're filthy rich or dreadfully poor, if you have this, you are rich beyond measure according to the angels of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They will say, their angels will take their Instagram accounts and they'll forward, did you see this? Look at these people, right? They won't be sharing Kim Kardashian or Taylor Swift or this or that, right? They will be sharing people like yourselves that honor your families in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you look at the important stories of our beloved family of the Prophet, you will find that they all have to do with this family loving one another. Let me tell you a story. The Prophet in his early life faced great persecution from his enemies. Because he was trying to bring truth and justice to the society, the Quraysh could not have this, right? We are making a lot of money with these idols, right? People come, they put the idol there, and they put lots of money in front of the idols. This is a great business deal for us. You're not going to go against our idols. And so they decided to exile or boycott the Prophet and his family. This is called Hisar of Banu Hashim. What happened in this Hisar? It was 3 years of boycott. But the ulama explained that this was not just boycott. This was 3 years of starvation. The Prophet would teach the Banu Hashim and the family of the Prophet and the close companions how to tie rocks around your stomach so that you don't feel the pangs of hunger. They would eat leaves off of the trees. Right? This is how they survived. The Prophet, the Prophet, Abu Talib would move the Prophet every night to a different bed and have a different son of his, Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ja'far al-Tayyar, to sleep on his bed because Abu Talib knew that they were assassins trying to murder the Prophet. And this 3 years of starvation caused dreadful difficulty to the family of the Prophet. One of those was Lady Khadija salamullahi alayha. Lady Khadija was not Banu Hashim. She was Banu Asad, which means that she did not have to face this starvation. But you know what she said? There's nowhere else I want to be except with my beloved Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Recite salawat, please. She starved alongside of the Prophet, and this took a heavy toll on the health of Lady Khadija. She died as a consequence of this. And then, of course, as you know, Abu Talib, he passed away in a similar time frame. And so the Prophet, he called this year Amul Huzn, the year of sorrow. He didn't lose his bank account. He didn't lose his career. He wasn't fired from his job, but he lost something more precious to him. A year of sorrow. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that the Prophet is suffering because of this. And so the Almighty decides, I'm going to give the Prophet a gift because of his sabr and his sacrifice and his patience in dealing with these terrible hardships. And so he gives the Prophet a journey to himself. You and I are going to inshallah experience something like this Yawm al-Qiyamah inshallah, hopefully, if we are worthy inshallah. Everyone say Ameen. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot wait. I want my beloved to come to me. This was known as the Mi'raj. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends for a limousine, right? A limousine driver, right? Jibreel. He doesn't come with a limousine, he comes with something far greater, the Buraq. The Buraq was a steed, a type of horse that was so quick that each one of its galloping was like lightning. This is why it's called Buraq, Barq, lightning. Right? And so Jibreel, the Prophet, and the Buraq, they now head towards Quds, and then from Quds, Jerusalem, they head towards the higher heavens. The story goes that the Prophet saw many remarkable experiences. He saw the hellfire. Allah showed him what the hellfire was like. Some narrations say that the Prophet never laughed after seeing the hellfire. And so we should understand how horrific hell truly is. He saw paradise. He met the great prophets of God. And so the Rasulullah was waiting for who would lead the prayer. In his humility, he thought maybe one of them would lead the prayer, Jibreel would lead the prayer. Jibreel says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed that no one else can lead you in prayer, Rasulullah. You will lead the prayer and everyone will follow. And just imagine, 124,000 prophets are now praying behind Rasulullah. The journey continues, where the Prophet reaches As-Sidratul Muntaha. Sidratul Muntaha was this tree that demarcated the very end of creation. Have you ever thought about where does the universe end? The Quran has told us, Sidratul Muntaha. Beyond this tree, there is nothing except for the Arsh and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This tree is so profound, the Prophet says, I cannot explain to you what this tree is like. Right? And so I won't even try to do it. It is said one leaf of this tree is like an entire nation. Just one tree covers an entire nation. Khair. The Prophet goes forward beyond this tree, and he turns around and he sees Jibreel is not coming with him. He says, oh Jibreel, why are you not coming with me? Jibreel says, Ya Rasulullah, where you are going, no one else has ever gone. If I try to go there, my wings will burn. I am not capable of going where you are going. And so the Prophet goes forward. The narrations say that Rasulullah began walking up the steps towards the divine throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The narration says that the Prophet was having difficulty. It was like, I don't know how to describe it, me climbing a mountain, right? It was very difficult. And the Prophet slips. He slips and he holds on to the curtains of light that surround the Arsh. And that is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala catches the Prophet. And the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings the Prophet to himself. Right? These are not physical events. These are just ways to try to describe what this spiritual experience was like. It is said, the Quran, now in Surah An-Najm, describes what this face-to-face meeting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was like. The Quran says, Huwa bil ufuqil a'la. He, the Prophet, was on the highest horizon. There's nowhere else higher than this. And then the Quran says, fa dana fatadalla. Dana means to come close when you are far. Tadalla means to come close when you're already closer. Allow me to explain. When two lovers are close to each other and they come even closer, this is tadallu. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He brought the Prophet to Himself. وَكَانَ قَابَ قَوْسَيْنِ أَوْ أَدْنَى. Now they are closer than you can even imagine. And then it says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala began speaking to His beloved messenger. The narrations say that the Prophet was overwhelmed by this. You know, we in our weakness, when a celebrity comes to us, we are completely overwhelmed. Right? We are nervous, we are afraid, we are scared. This is not any celebrity. This is Allah Azza wa Jal. And the Prophet is in the divine presence of God. And this divine presence is such that when the tajalli of Allah revealed itself to the mountain, what happened to the mountain? It shattered. The mountain crumbled into dust. This is what Rasulullah is experiencing. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees the Prophet and He wants to do something for the Prophet to give sakina and tranquility so that He can bring the Prophet closer to Himself. The Prophet is overwhelmed, and so Allah wants to do something to give him ease and comfort. And so the narration says that Allah looked into the wujud of the Prophet. He looked into the heart of the Prophet. What can I find in there that I could use to remind the Prophet of tranquility and love and stillness and itma'anan? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala found someone in the heart of the Prophet, and He says, yes, this is the one whom you love. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I'm going to continue my conversation with you in the voice of the one that you love so dearly. The narration says that Allah began speaking to the Prophet in the voice of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam. You can do better than that. Recite salawat. This is the love of Rasulullah for Amir al-Mu'mineen. They loved each other so dearly. This is the love of the Prophet for Lady Khadija. Right? It is said that that when the revelation began, the Prophet often was overwhelmed by the experience. Not that he was afraid, na'udhu billah, the way that some people narrate. This is completely false. These are conspiracies of Banu Umayyah that have attributed falsehoods to the Prophet. That he was afraid, that he ran away, that na'udhu billah, he tried to do these. Allah was in love with God. This is why he is overwhelmed. And so sometimes the Prophet would lie in the lap of Lady Khadija. Give me your lap, O my beloved wife, so that I can lie my head in your lap while I receive revelation. Raddu Shams, you've heard the story? That the revelation was descending and the Prophet had to lie down immediately. The Prophet says, "Oh Ali, come to me." And Amir al-Mu'mineen sat there and he allowed the Prophet to just lay in his lap. And because he was obeying the command of God and the Prophet, Imam Ali missed praying, standing normally, his Salatul Asr. This is not a sin, of course. This is actually in obedience to God and His Messenger. And so then the Prophet says, "Ya Allah, your Imam, my beloved brother Ali, he was obeying me, and so allow the sun to come back." And so the Prophet, he asked Allah to bring the sun back so that Imam Ali could pray normally. But the true beauty of this story is seeing how these two loving family members are with one another. This is what we are trying to emulate, my brothers and sisters. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you a family, even a fraction like this, inshallah. Everyone say Ameen. Recite the loudest of your salawat. The Ahlul Bayt, they love their family. It is said that one of the companions of the Prophet, Ibn Abbas, came to Imam Hussein and said, "My master Hussein, don't go to Kufa." The Imam explained to him, "I know you mean well, but I must go. This is my wazifa, this is my responsibility." Ibn Abbas says that if you must go, O my master Hussein, leave the women and leave the children with us. Don't take them with you. We will care for them. We will honor them. You know what? You know what happened in this narration? It is said that there were women and children who heard this conversation between Imam Hussein and Ibn Abbas, and they protested. "Yabna Abbas," they said. The women say, "Oh, Ibn Abbas, are you trying to convince our master Hussein to leave us behind? We swear to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we will live with Hussein, we will be with Hussein, and we will die with Hussein, but we will never ever leave our master Hussein." Right? Because when you truly understand what is really important, how can you leave what is so sacred to you for anything in this dunya? And Imam Hussein also loved his family. Let me show you how much he loved his family. It is said that when all of the companions left this world, they were all shaheed. And Gharib Hussein is now alone on the day of Ashura. History tells us that our Imam faced 30,000 soldiers by himself. Imam Baqir narrates that there was not a weapon on the day of Ashura except that it was used against my grandfather Hussein. Those with swords, they used swords against my grandfather Hussein. Those with spears used spears against the body of my grandfather Hussein. Those with arrows, they would make fly arrows towards Hussein. Those with nothing in their hands, just look at the ghurba of our Imam. Those who had nothing in their hands, they picked up rocks and they threw rocks at Hussein. This was the rain on the day of Ashura. And just imagine when Ashqal Ashqiya, when Shimr ibn Dhil Joshan came to Imam, when he fell off of his horse. You know, Imam Hussein did not hit the ground. فَكَانَ جِسْمُهُ مُعَلَّقَةً بَيْنَ السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ, because he fell on a bed of arrows. His body was suspended between the sands of Karbala and the sky. And then when Shimar ibn Diljoshan came to Imam Hussein, you know he took in his left hand the beard of our Imam. And in his other hand, he had a small dagger, and he cut the Imam 12 times. And he sat upon the chest of our Imam. But you know what the Imam was worried about in this moment? Imam Mahdi narrates in Ziyarat Nahiya that when my great-great-grandfather could not move, it is said that he was looking out of the corner of his eye. Where was he looking, my brothers and sisters? He was looking towards the tents of his women and his children. He was worried, what will happen to my Zainab? Because Abbas is not there anymore to protect my Zainab. What will happen to my Sakina? How will she sleep at night? This is what Imam Hussein, with all of the physical agony, he is worried about his children, my brothers and my sisters. And now see that when Zuljana comes back to the khayma of Imam Hussein, and Sakina sees that Zuljana has returned without his rider. Do you know what Sakina asked the horse of Imam Hussein? She does not ask, what will happen to us now? She says, "Oh Zuljana, when they killed my father, did they give him something to drink before they killed him? Do you know how thirsty my Baba was on this day? The little 4-year-old daughter of Imam Hussein has not drank water for 3 days, but she is worried my Baba was thirsty." Now come to the dungeons of Sham. Look and see how Lady Zainab is trying to put Sakina to sleep on the dark, cold dungeons of Sham. Sakina cannot sleep at night. She calls out, "Aina Walidi al-Hussein?" Where is my father Hussein? My brothers and sisters, can the women and those of the Ahlul Bayt try to comfort Sakina? They can do nothing for her. And so they just weep alongside of her. The streets of Sham can hear the cries of the women and children. And so now Yazid, he is worried that there will be revolution in his city. He says, bring this little girl something that will comfort her. It is said that the prison guards, they bring a silver platter to the dungeons, and Sakina sees this. She thinks it is food. She says, "Oh man, I am not hungry. I just want you to bring my father back to me." They remove the cover. May Allah curse these people forever. What does Sakina see in front of her? They remove the cover, and she comes to it, and she kisses and hugs the head of her father Hussein alayhi salatu wassalam. Do you know what she says? She says, "My Baba Hussein, I wish I had died before seeing you like this. How will you wipe my tears away when you are this way? How will I be able to sleep at night on your chest when they have separated this blessed head from your body? Ya Allah, oh Allah, take me back to my father." It is said that Lady Zainab comes to Sakina. It is said that Imam Sajjad comes to Sakina. They see that Sakina has fallen asleep next to the head of Imam Hussein. Imam Sajjad says, "My sister Sakina, will you not wake up, my beloved sister Sakina?" The women and children hear nothing except for the words from Imam Sajjad. "Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un." My lady Aunt Zainab, help me bury the amana of Hussein, for her soul has returned to Hussein. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Wa saya'lamu alladhina zalamu ayya munqalibin yanqalibun. Brothers and sisters, raise your hands in dua. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He will allow us to understand what is truly important. That may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring success in this dunya and the akhirah. But more importantly, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make the wealth, the careers, and all that we have in this dunya, may it be used for what is truly important for our the pleasure of the Ahlul Bayt, the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the inspiration to use this dunya, this property, this wealth for the sake of our families, our loved ones, making them happy. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inshallah ensure that we use this wealth for the sake of our communities, our centers, our masajids, that we may inshallah prepare this dunya for the return of the Imam of our time, Imam al-Hujjah, عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف والآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.